All right, cool. Well, so we'll get started. Well, Sabrina, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with me today. I know that you and I have worked together for the past probably a couple of years now, right?
Yeah, time flies.
Yeah, many different deals, but this is the first time that we've officially seen each other and connected face to face. So I appreciate that. Tell me, what's your background? I mean, when you've been doing cost seg for about how long, and what were you doing prior to that?
Yep. So I started cost seg in about 2019. Out of college, got into real estate. Was a real estate broker, and then I got into the commercial side. So I formed a company and teamed up with some investors, and we bought non-performing commercial loans. And then once that market turned around, I got into the commercial financing side of things. So I worked with that, and then I worked with CBRE as a senior portfolio analyst, and then I switched to a mortgage brokerage commercial company, and did commercial underwriting. And then I found cost seg because I couldn't sit still in an office setting for the time with CBRE and the underwriting job. So I found cost seg, and it's kind of hard to believe that I didn't know or hear about cost seg all those years in real estate until 2019. So it's been a lot of fun. I've been able to help a lot of people throughout the country. We don't have any limitations on territories or locations, so it's been good. And I love helping people save money and reduce their taxes. We always like to say the IRS is nobody's favorite charity. So if we can help people keep more of their money, then it's a win-win. So
yeah, I mean, you guys have been a lifesaver for myself and my family throughout the past couple of years. And to that point, prior to, it's been about 3 years or so, I had a CPA that was, apparently a high-powered CPA. He was super legit, but he did not know anything about cost segregation studies. And had I have known that back then, I mean, I would have saved. I mean, it's $1 million+ in taxes I overpaid. And how did you get into cost seg, or how did you get started with CSSI?
So I actually had a mutual business partner, reach out to me. They just asked if I was in the market for a new position, and I was very skeptical at first because it sounded too good to be true. But once I learned about it, it was a no-brainer for me to switch over and leave the corporate world for the couple of months. Really, I had always been more the entrepreneurial mindset with my own business and such. So once I found cost seg, it was just a win-win for me because I could work from anywhere in the country and build my own business and work with different clients anywhere. So
CSSI is a larger corporation, right? And you kind of have your own portfolio of clients, is that right? Or
yeah, so CSSI, our home office is in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So they've been around since 2003. We've done over 45,000 studies throughout the country. So there's over 200 reps throughout the country.
Well, that's good to know. So, I mean, I know that we've always dealt with you directly, and, kudos to you, because every time we send out an email, it's like, Sabrina, we need this back like 2 days, which obviously you can't promise that turnaround. So I guess the good thing for anybody listening, that if they're connected with you, like you're the one guiding them through this, like you're the go-to gal for this, right?
Yep. And once we get everything signed, project coordinators assigned, they're at the home office. So they work with the client to gather the information to get it to the engineers to get it into the study phase. So once it's in study phase, then the project takes about 2 to 4 weeks to complete. But I'm the main contact person, and I'm really adamant about customer service. So if somebody, texts me or calls or emails, I try to get back within 12 hours or less. Like usually it's pretty instant, but I try to do my best to respond right away. And I know I've heard a lot of other companies take a couple of weeks to get back to them, and I can't wrap my head around that because it's like I have to do it right now. So
yeah. Well, before we get ahead of ourselves, so if anybody's listening right now, obviously we've said cost seg about 15 times, but we haven't defined exactly what a cost seg is. So let's talk about, it's a cost segregation study, how this started, where this came from, right? What the current climate is today, and then we'll kind of go through some examples. So what is cost segregation? Because I know I've sent you many clients of guys that own RV parks and mobile home parks, and they're like seasoned investors, and they had no clue about cost segregation. And I said, oh my God, you've got to call Sabrina. So there's so many people out there. It's like this little hidden gem that we as investors think everybody knows about, but like there's still a lot of people out there that don't know about it. So tell us, what is cost segregation studies?
Yes. So back in the day, around 1997, they started allowing cost segregation on large properties, $10 million and up. Over the years, they've made it more friendly for small businesses or small owners to take advantage of it, because they're like, well, if we can do it on a $10 million building, why can't we do it on a $1 million building? So over the course of time, people started catching on to that and using that as a tax strategy. In 2017, when Trump passed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, anything purchased from September 27th through 2022 was eligible for 100% bonus depreciation. So let me back up. What a cost seg study does is we analyze up to 100 building components that are really in an earlier depreciation life. So when you buy a property, it goes on a depreciation schedule, and for commercial, it will depreciate equally over 39 years. So when we identify the different building components that are really in a 5, 7, or 15 year, we're able to take that depreciation expense today rather than waiting. So with that 100% bonus, you're able to take anything found in that 5, 7, 15 years, 100% of that in the current tax year that you're doing the study for.
Okay, and just to pause before we geek out and get too deep on this, for the elementary level, like the people that this is the first time they've ever heard this topic, depreciation. So let's talk about what's depreciable and what type of, these are improvements, but what are they depreciating that's actually on the property, and what can they not depreciate?
So land cannot be depreciated, but any kind of building improvement or land improvement, which is the building, is depreciable. So, roof, HVAC, electrical, plumbing, those things are on the 39-year schedule. Those will stay. Any kind of structural items, even though, HVAC is like, oh, that's not going to last 39 years. The IRS still identifies that as 39 years as of right now. So that's going to stay on 39 years no matter what. But building components like carpet, windows, trim, landscaping, decking, security systems, anything else like that can be taken in a 5, 7, or 15 years. So we usually find about 20 to 30% of the property that can be moved forward and reclassified. And then you continue to depreciate the building over the 39 years. But what we can find in an earlier life is really the tax benefit.
Okay, so you're finding those items that are depreciable, and you're taking that, and they're able to use that depreciation for this year or for future gains to offset, their income or.
So what would normally happen if you're on a 39-year schedule, you're going to take a portion of that property, in the current tax year. Say you do a cost seg study, we identify 20% of the property is eligible for that 100% bonus. So say $200,000, for example, is an extra depreciation expense that we found. By doing a study, you can take that extra depreciation against the income on the property in that current tax year. And whatever's not used, you can carry it forward till it's fully absorbed. So also by saying that, if you're just an investor that has a property and you're not considered what they call a qualified real estate professional, then that tax deduction would be used against just the property's income. But if you are a qualified professional, you're going to qualify to take that tax benefit against not only the income on the property, but also any W-2 income or any other business income, along with your spouse if you're filing jointly. So it's a really powerful tool to have if you can get that designation. A lot of people have to work with their CPAs to get that at 750 hours or more in the real estate industry, and it has to be documented.
Okay, because I know that there's, for those of you, again, that this is kind of new to, you have to file as a real estate professional to take full advantage of the cost segregation study for bonus depreciation. But I'm under the impression, right, that people can talk to their CPAs because there's still tax advantages to a limited partner, an LP partner that might be a doctor, a dentist, a lawyer that wants to invest passively, but they can still use some sort of the depreciation schedule. And obviously that's something they need to talk to their CPA about. Is that right? Or
yeah, and that tax deduction then would just go against the income that's being spun off by the property.
Yes.
So you can still use it. It just might take you a little bit longer, a couple more years, if that income isn't necessarily really high, as it would be if you could use it against your W-2 or spouse's W-2 income or other business income.
So obviously neither one of us are CPAs, but if I'm understanding you properly, I'm a dentist. I go and invest in a property. I'm getting gains. I'm getting yield from that investment. I can use my cost segregation study, that depreciation, to offset the gains in that specific deal. But it's not offsetting my earned income as a dentist. But yeah, that's, you don't have that in the market. So that makes total sense.
Exactly. I will say one regulation. Some people call it the short-term rental loophole. It's not really a loophole because it is a regulation. If you buy a short-term rental property and you average 7 days or less in that property that is being rented out, and you work at least 100 hours a year, and nobody else is working more on that property than you are, then that could qualify you for that professional status. So then a lot of people, like doctors, dentists, and whatnot, will buy short-term rentals, qualify as a real estate professional, and then use the income from their short-term rental or the depreciation from their short-term rental to offset their income on other sources of income.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. So we'll look at an example in a second of one of these estimates, but just to walk everybody through the process, like normally we will contract a property, and when we contract that property, part of our due diligence process is that we're sending, Sabrina the information on that property, and Sabrina is kicking out an estimate of basically what our depreciation schedule would look like, just prematurely. And Sabrina, you're doing that at no cost, right? You'll put these estimates together? Okay.
Yep. Provide free estimates. We just need property address, purchase price, closing date, and cost of any major improvements, and we can get that free estimate.
Okay, so and we'll get your contact and all that stuff. So yeah, we'll send it over to Sabrina. Sabrina will shoot it back to us. And naturally, people probably want to know, like, okay, well, this is, it sounds amazing. What's the cost? I mean, I know that our cost it's a no-brainer, right? Like, I don't want to speak for you, but what's the typical, well, this is very subjective to the size property, right? But let's say if you got a $4 million RV park, I mean, give or take, what's a ballpark on that?
Probably around 65 to 7,500. There's an example here I can show you in a little bit, but for $6,900, they're getting an extra $3 million in depreciation expense on a $4 million property. Now, this is kind of rare to see this, but there was about 88% that we found in an earlier life, which is something we only usually see in RV parks or mobile home parks. So that's a really high number, but they were very happy to pay $7,000 to get an extra $3 million in depreciation expense.
Yeah, because that's $3 million they're not paying to the IRS.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and again, just recapping. So everybody understands, like, if you don't have a $3 million tax bill this year, let's say you have a $5 million a $500,000 tax bill. Like it's kind of like it's not a use it or lose it type scenario that would roll forward, right? And so they can continue to use that.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be carried forward. Like, and some people want to elect to only use a certain portion of that benefit, so they can apply that for the current tax year, then roll forward whatever they need to for the following year. So it's not lost. The only thing that it is a use it or lose it situation is if there's major renovations done on the property. So there's a separate part of a study for renovations. It's called a PAD, or a partial asset disposition. You're doing a major renovation, say in 2025. It's considered cash for your trash. So aside from the regular cost seg, anything coming out of the property and put in the dumpster has a value that the IRS allows you to use as essentially a write-off. So if you don't do the PAD study in that year, then that's a vast. So situation where it's a use it or lose it type of situation. But as long as that study is done in the year that the improvements are put into service, you're good. Okay.
Yeah. So $6,900, and obviously these are just random examples that you've seen, but $6,900 that an investor is paying or a group is paying for this study, and it's getting them $3,000 in depreciation, or $3 million in depreciation that they're not paying to the government. So kind of a no-brainer there. Walk us through, before we go through an example, like this started off as 100%, and again, this might confuse some people, but in 2017, is that right? Started off at 100%. Trump put that into
September 7th, 2017. So anything put in service starting September 27th, 2017 through December 31st, 2022 is eligible for 100% bonus depreciation. Even if you were to do a study now in 25, it goes based on when the property was put in service. So that was 100% bonus. In 2023, it dipped down to 80% bonus. Last year was 60% bonus, and this year is set to be 40% bonus. And even before bonus depreciation came into the picture, cost segregation was still valuable because you're still going to depreciate parts of the building over 5 years, 7 years, and 15 years rather than 39 years. It's just with that Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that just fueled gasoline on the fire to where it's really stimulating the economy to get people out to save money on taxes and reinvest, really. So we're hoping once he gets inaugurated again, that's going to be reenacted or, redone. So we're hopeful it's going to happen. So what's that?
A couple days from now, hopefully.
13 days and counting. We want that 100% back.
Yeah, because so Trump put this into play in 2017. It was basically set up to ramp down over the years. We're currently sitting at 40%. So everything we've been talking about, instead of 100% depreciation, it's 40%. But there's a lot of speculation that Trump might flip the switch, right? And that goes back to 100%, which would, to your pouring gas on the fire analogy, real estate would go gangbusters, right? I mean, it would be insane. So
I've had a lot of clients that purchase, multiple properties at once. So they'll cost seg it, and the savings they get from not having to pay taxes, they'll reinvest into a whole nother building as a down payment or renovations, to improve the property. So it's really a valuable strategy that was implemented. So we're hopeful that comes back, and it might even come back retroactive to the 2024 tax year. So that'd be great. Fingers crossed.
And just another thing too, so somebody bought a building post 2017, right? And they've had this building, they're listening to this, they knew nothing about cost segregation studies, and they're just hearing this. So if they've had it since 2017, 18, 19, 20, whatever, they can still reach out to you guys and you can still run this study. They can still get all the depreciation. Would it be, forgive me for rehashing this, is that going to be the 2017 100% if they bought it in 17, or would it be today's depreciation?
It would be when the property was put in service. So as long as it was after September 27th, 2017, that's still eligible. And if it was before September 27th, then it would just be regular cost seg, which would be the 5, 7, 15 year categories. So we can go as far as 10 to 15 years back. We can run the numbers to see if it makes sense. Usually some of the larger properties, even 15 years, they bought the property 15 years ago, there's still some of that 5-year property that's being depreciated over 39 years that we can move forward into the current tax year. So some of the smaller short-term rentals doesn't make sense because depreciation is already taken and the cost basis is really small. But I always say anything that's been purchased for $200,000 or more, and then has been held for at least, or within the past 10 to 15 years, we can run the numbers on.
Okay. That's huge, man. So there's so many people that are sitting on assets that they acquired in 17, 18 when things were like gangbusters that they can take advantage of. What about, so you already covered the fact of $200,000 plus. Let's talk about, and again, this is probably a CPA question as well too. Somebody listening, consult with your CPA. But let's talk about when and would not be a wise time to do a cost segregation study. Maybe somebody buys let's say we buy RV parks. We generally hold them for years. Mm-hmm. And then we'll flip out of them once we've stabilized and increased cash flow and all that stuff. So, somebody's looking to say, hey, I'm gonna flip out of this in 1 year. Probably not the best. And can you explain why? Or
yeah, so really the only time we recommend not doing cost seg is either if the cost basis is too low, where the fee just doesn't make sense with the benefit, or if they're going to be flipping the property. So we recommend holding the property at least 3 years or more. If it's, a fix and flip, or they're just going to be a quick hold, it's not really recommended because the IRS is going to make you pay back what they call recapture. And so you get that depreciation expense now, they're going to want some of their money back because you didn't hold the property long enough for any of that to actually come to fruition and depreciate. So it's not going to be 100% of what you took as depreciation expense. There are ways to write some of those items down, but we don't recommend it.
Yeah.
Hold the property at least 3 years or more from the time of doing the study, and then you'll be good.
Well, yeah, I think let's go through an example real quick, because I know I had a buddy that I referred over to you, multiple friends I've referred to you, and one of the guys called me with his wife, and man, he had his kids with them, and they're like, "You just saved us $500,000," and literally, he's like, "You literally just gifted me $500,000." I'm like, "No shit." I mean, it's really nutty. So it can be intimidating. I remember the first time years ago when I received one of these, I'm like, "Oh man," and I just kind of scrolled to the bottom to try to find the number. But if you're able to, can you share screen and kind of walk us through some of those?
Okay, so this is for an RV storage. We did a couple of years ago now. So the building cost is the cost basis. This is excluding land. Since land is not depreciable, we have to take the land value out. So 4.2 million is the cost basis. what would normally happen is if they did not do cost segregation on the straight line method, they're going to get about $50,000 in depreciation expense for that first tax year in 2023. So what we do is look at the alternative method, which is the cost segregation method, at 80% bonus since it was in 2023. We're pulling forward as much as we can in the 5, 7, and 15-year life. And then the 39-year, you're still going to depreciate, the 39-year component. So the total depreciation that was found for this deal, including the 39-year life, was about a little over $3 million. So in comparison, between $50,000 or $3 million that they're able to take as a tax deduction against their income, that's a pretty big difference. And it's actually this number right here, that $3,021,000 is the difference of doing a cost seg study. And then the number down here is the tax rate. So standard is about 37%. So there's really two ways to look at this. You can look at it as you're getting a total depreciation expense of $3,072,000, or you take that tax benefit at 37%. This is the increased benefit. Say you had a $1 million tax bill. Well, this is going to decrease that $1 million tax bill by $1 million. So that extra 118 is going to carry forward, and you're going to pay zero taxes. So,
yeah. So in this example, it was not just for everybody to make sure there's clarity. It's not the $3 million, but at the bottom here, the estimated accumulated tax savings benefit, the 118. So the 1.18, that would be their dollar for dollar kind of tax savings. Is that correct?
Yeah, that would be the reduction of the tax bill of the overall what you owe the IRS tax money.
Correct.
And then this $3 million is the extra. Well, I like to do the total because you want to capture that extra 39 years. So the total depreciation is going to be a $3 million, $72,000 deduction against your overall income on the property, or NOI.
Okay.
So then what's left of that, if you have a $3 million NOI that you have to pay taxes on, and you use this as a deduction, you're going to have negative $72,000 that can carry forward. So essentially you're paying 37% taxes on $0.
Good deal. Anything else in this example that you want to walk through?
This is pretty much what I explained to clients. There is another page down here that goes to show in the upper left-hand corner. I like to show this sometimes. So 5 and 7 year is combined in one. So we found about 5.1% in the 5 and 7 year life. And then 83% of the total property was found in 15 year. So that's a really huge number. Typically it's 20 to 30% for a lot of other commercial buildings, but RV parks and storage are really great projects to do cost seg on because there is so much 15-year life. That would include like the landscaping, the land improvements, buildings that are put on it that, depending on the type of building it is, if it's like a storage shed type building, that's 15-year.
So you hit the nail on the head with us. Obviously, we're RV mobile. That's all we do. But, people are shocked to hear that because they think with RV parks and mobile home parks, like if you just own the lots and it's the utilities and the infrastructure, they're, comparing that to like multifamily where they're thinking there's not these huge structures and all these windows and carpet and, counters and all that stuff. So can you explain again why RV parks, mobile home parks, self-storage, I've heard car washes as well, kind of perform better than a lot of other assets?
Yeah, there's just more 15-year life. You're not going to have as much of the brick and mortar with those kind of buildings. You're going to have more shed-like structures, and fencing, gates, security systems, some of the land improvements. That's just more, that's categorized as 15-year property.
Good deal. And I guess rounding out everything else, is there anything else you wanted to hit on this? I know that when you guys send that estimate over, and again, this is the free kind of, I guess, quote, if you will, that you guys will send them. Can you just kind of repeat one more time before somebody reaches out to you, what do they need to be kind of equipped with? What do they need to send you?
Yeah, so for a free estimate, I need the property address, purchase date, the purchase price, purchase or in-service date, the purchase price, the cost of any kind of improvements and when those will be done. So if you buy a property this year and say, we're not doing anything this year, but next year we're going to have $200,000 in renovations, that's something we want to know, so we can include that in the estimate. And then property type. So is it a self-storage? Is it an RV storage? Is it multifamily apartments, hotels, short-term rentals? long-term rentals. So property type is going to make a difference on how this estimate comes out as well.
Okay.
Yeah, let me show you real quick. This right here is where it shows the pricing for it. So for this deal was $69.20, and that is tax deductible. So after, the tax write-off, essentially you're paying $43.60 for, $1 million deduction in your tax bill.
No brainer.
So
Your job's pretty easy.
yeah, that's why I love it.
I'm sure you're paid a commission, and that's definitely a good gig for you. So
Yes. Yeah, we are on commission. We get a percentage, and then we split it with home office and the engineers and everybody back there. So
I know I've asked you this in the past, but just to kind of round out all the bases for everybody, if somebody had a property, because we've talked about if they've not done a cost seg back from 2017, 18, 19, and they've already unloaded the property, they've already sold it, they're not able to go back and cost seg and say, wait a minute, they have to still be in possession of the building.
correct. Yeah, if they sold it, it's done for. You can't claim depreciation because once that property's sold, the schedule essentially goes away. So if they buy a new property, can do that. If they do 1031 exchange, we can do that. We just take the adjusted cost basis number and then figure that out to do the study on the new property.
Before we wrap, this has been extremely insightful. Thank you for walking us through the screen share there.
No problem. I think, a lot of people miss that if they are doing renovations. I had in Austin, it was a campus school, school that had a bunch of different campuses. They did over $40 million renovation, and they didn't know about cost seg. And they did it a couple of years prior to when I talked to them. So they lost out on all the extra benefit for the renovation. So if there's anybody doing $50,000 or more in renovations, I would recommend looking at a cost seg, especially for that tax year when the renovations are done, because that extra disposition that's thrown into the trash, you can take a write down on that. And that's sometimes it's pretty substantial. So a lot of people miss that because they just don't know about it.
So I buy a commercial building, right? Let's just say I buy a triple net office building. Buy the office building and we want to cost seg it, but we don't even think about, we're going to go ahead and, rip out everything to do TIs or redo the floor plan there. Mm-hmm. So you're saying they can depreciate what's being dumped into the trash? Mm-hmm. They can...
All of that. Yeah, because essentially the IRS is saying you're taking this off your books and you're putting it in the dumpster. So whatever value is left with that, you can take it as a write-off. And then all of the new components going in get cost seg and identified properly. And then you take the benefit and the depreciation, accelerated depreciation for those assets.
So you're basically able to double dip, kind of in a sense, on the renovation.
It's just, you're kind of sort of, but you're just taking the what's left of the asset that you're throwing away, and then you're taking what's going back in. So if you didn't do that, it's almost like you're still double dipping because the old property is still on record. So once you take it off, they give you that extra benefit, and then you put the new on, if that makes sense.
Right. So the same thing, like if we're going to we obviously normally renovate RV parks. So if we buy an RV park that we're going to renovate and we're pulling out the septic system and we're putting in a new system and then all this other infrastructure there, that's something to reach out to you guys about. Is that right?
For sure.
We're doing it right now. So we need to hit you up there. Well, man, I appreciate the time. Like I said, you guys have, and this is, hopefully you've heard this a lot. I don't know that you have, but I'm praying that you have. But like literally, you guys and just the cost seg itself has changed my life, my family's life. I won't get into numbers, but it's a lot. It's a lot. And it's added up over the years. And again, what you're doing impacts my business, my family life, and so just overall well-being. It's shocking that it's still, I'm a part of real estate masterminds, and these are high-level guys that pay 30 to 50 grand a year to be a part of these masterminds. And we meet every quarter and somewhere throughout the US. And every single time there's a couple of folks that I talk to, and I send them over to you because there's a couple of folks I talk to. They're like, I'll ask them, hey, are you cost segging your stuff? What's that? And I'm like, holy hell.
Exactly. I just closed on a $30 million portfolio. The guy's got 12 properties and had never heard of cost seg. So, the savings we're going to bring him is just exponential. And that's really why I love this job, is like just being able to help people and really make a difference and have them just like be able to go buy more and have more freedom and, reinvest that money in one way or another. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
It's life-changing there. So, well, I guess before we wrap here, if anybody has any questions or wants to connect with Sabrina, whether this is on YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, my website, wherever you find it, reach out to me. I can get you connected with Sabrina, get all of her contact there. And obviously, Sabrina, you can, you want to give your maybe your email, or is there anything?
I have a website. It's www.costsegtaxsavers.com. My email address is just sabrina.gettler@cssiservices.com. So yeah, happy to, a big part of my job is helping to educate not only people, but CPAs and tax planners, because a lot of people come to me and say their CPAs didn't recommend this, or terrible people, and they're not terrible people. It's just that that's not their specialty. So I work with the CPAs to help them understand the ins and outs of this, and we partner up and work to help the client in the best way that we can. So answer questions or just help to educate in any way that I can. So
yeah, and I've said in closing 5 times now, but if you guys, everybody, look me in the eye. So if you're listening to this and you talk to your CPA, I would recommend that you just ask some qualifying questions. Say, hey, what are your thoughts on, cost segregation for my buildings, the cost segregation studies? And if they, ponder, they think about it, or they say, what's that? I would highly advise that you talk to some of the friends in your network and maybe ask them for some additional referrals to your CPA, because that cost me well over, million or millions of dollars, because I had a guy that just was not a real estate CPA, and it cost me tons of money there. So definitely recommend to reach out. And Sabrina, you're not, obviously, like you said, you work in conjunction with them, right? So you're working together and showing them how to put this on their returns.
Yeah, and I've actually had a lot of CPAs, even, at the end of the day, I work for the client, not the client CPA. So we've had a lot of clients that have come to me and say, hey, my CPA doesn't think this is a good idea. I'm like, well, here's why it could be for you, and it's your money. So you help guide the CPA. So I do have a lot of CPAs shoot it down, but it's usually just because they don't understand the rules and how it really applies. So, or they'll say, unless you have a $5 million building, it's not worth it. And that's just not true. So, I mean, every situation is different. If you don't have income to offset, it may not work this year, but, I think it's always best just to inquire about your money. And, a lot of CPAs work for the IRS, and that's just their job. So the CPA, the real estate CPAs, the tax planners, the tax strategists are really great to work with to help, like you said, save millions up front, because if you realize it down the road, it's tough to look back and think of what you missed out on.
It's painful. Well, everybody do your own due diligence, right? Neither one of us are CPAs. I'm telling you my personal experience working with Sabrina. Obviously, Sabrina's not a CPA, so do your due diligence. Talk to your CPA, ask Sabrina questions. They can, attach them on an email. That way you can kind of uncover all the questions and make sure you can make an educated decision for yourself there. So Sabrina, again, you've been life-changing. Thank you so much. You're amazing. I know you're traveling tomorrow, and I'll look forward. We just sent you a deal. I think you guys have kind of wrapped up. I think you're working on it right now. It's 2 parts.
Yeah, I saw that this morning. They're getting close. She said 2 weeks, and I told her it needs to be sooner than 2 weeks. So we'll see what she comes back with.
No pressure. Well, thank you so much. We'll stay in contact, guys. If anybody needs her contact, just reach out to me, and we'd love to connect you guys. Thank you, Sabrina. You're amazing.
Thank you so much, Marcus. I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Hey, we just wrapped up a podcast episode with Sabrina from CSSI. We talk about cost segregation studies and how you can save massive amounts of money instead of paying it into the IRS. So check out the episode. We've got the full episode on YouTube as well as our website at coltcamcapital.com.